And we're live, it seems. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Brain-Friendly Thinking. And we already have the first people here. How is everybody doing today? Right. So welcome everybody to the first live stream of Brain-Friendly Thinking. Today what we're going to look at is how to articulate your words. No, how to articulate your thoughts into words. I made a video about this a couple of months ago, and a lot of you seem to like this very much. A lot of you had a lot of questions, so I thought this is a great opportunity for you to ask the questions live, and we can talk about them sort of in real time. But we will wait a couple of minutes before we get started. And let's see, how is everybody doing? Hey Ray, excited to be here. Great that you're here. And hello Faizan. Hello Erithekos. Great that you guys could make it. Forgive me, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Yunsok? Is that somehow close? Great, cool. Yunsok Choi. That sounds maybe Korean? I'm not sure, is that Korean? It is Korean, great. Can you hear me okay? Can you understand me okay, yes? Right. Let's see. Good. As I was saying, so today is really I would like to make today an interactive session, because just me talking to you, this is, for that you can watch the normal videos. We don't need a live session, a live stream for that. But I thought it's really valuable if you can ask your questions, and if you ask further clarifying questions, and we will see where we're going with that. So if you have any questions regarding how to articulate your thoughts, don't be shy and write them in the chat so that I can see them. Otherwise, maybe as a quick recap, hello from Florida. Hi, Greg. As a quick recap, what I was saying in the video when I first talked about how to articulate your thoughts is that it's actually our thoughts are a little bit like shy deer. deer in the woods, which we try to sort of hunt and pin down on paper. So it's not so easy to express your thoughts clearly, especially if it's a topic you're not very familiar with, or if it's in a language that you're not very familiar with. I know a couple of people, not a couple of people, actually quite a number of people which are watching my channel are not English native speakers, neither am I. And switching between languages is sometimes not so easy. So thanks, Greg. I'm trying my best. It's actually very, speaking about articulating your words, it's actually also not so easy for me. You guys obviously don't notice that because everything which I publish went through a careful process of editing. And I edit out all the Ers and Ms and I don't knows and where did I want to go from here. But putting my thoughts into words for the video, I very often have ideas and I know where I want to go with the video, but what I usually do at the moment is I'm trying sort of to write an outline for the video. At the very beginning, I actually wrote the complete script for the video and I read it off, but then some people told me that doesn't sound very natural, so now I'm just only writing an outline. And as I then stand in front of the camera, there is this sort of, I'm still having difficulties putting my thoughts into words, and on the other hand, I also have the sensor, which tells me what I'm doing is not good enough. It doesn't really sound very well. And so I don't know, is it three times the length of the video, sometimes 4 times the length of the video? I have to cut out because it's me starting again. It doesn't sound very good. I try it again, I mess up, and then I cut everything out and cut it into one video. Right, Faizan asked the question, do you think using zettelkasten can help with articulating your thought? So what's your process? And Greg said mind mapping and outlining. Yes, Faizan. I think zettelkasten can help. It's not a solution for everything. You don't necessarily need a zettelkasten, and a zettelkasten cannot necessarily work for every problem. But the great thing about the zettelkasten is that you can put down words or you can put down ideas which are very incomplete, and you can link them to other ideas. So then later, when you look at your zettels, you already have, I wanted to say you already have a train of thought made for you, but this is not actually correct. You basically have individual snippets, which you then can reorder, can reshuffle into a sequence that makes sense, and then you can try to express it. I think it can definitely help with a starting point, also to sort of drill down to deeper thoughts over time. I would still think, from my experience, after I ordered them in a sequence that makes sense for me, then at the beginning I still struggle a little bit to make it a coherent story. I think maybe other people find it easier. For me, it's still a little bit of a struggle, but it's a different type of struggle. Now I already know what I want to say, and I just need to sort of weave it together. Whereas some other times you have this idea, and as soon as you try to put it into words, you actually find that there's not a lot of meat to the idea, or that there's something blocking you. And this is definitely a step that can be removed by zettelkasten. And yes, mind mapping or outlining, they're also good tools. What I like to do is I'm doing a lot with ABC lists or carvers. With ABC list, for me personally, I find that I get many more ideas, but carvers, I find the ideas are more to the point. So what I will do sometimes is I will first do an ABC list to get all the ideas out of my head in terms of simple words. And then I take some of the words and I rearrange them in a carver. Then I take the carver and I sort of mark the words, which of the words belong together. And this is the same phenomenon as if I'm starting with a zettelkasten, because then I have already something I know I want to say, and now the difficulty is more in weaving my train of thought together rather than trying to weave it together and at the same time trying to think of new ideas that I can add. Okay, Greg said, Toastmasters International is a very good training ground for public speaking. I agree, totally. Mainly for prepared talks, I still need help with real-time discussions. Difference between listening, okay. The difference between listening and fully hearing the other ideas before responding. Yes, Greg, I completely agree with you. I also participated in Toastmasters several years ago. And right now where I'm living, there's no Toastmasters club in my area, but it was a very good training. And especially what I noticed is the format in Toastmasters, for those of you who don't know Toastmasters. In Toastmasters, you have a program. You always have a Toastmaster of the evening or of the morning, whenever your club is meeting, that guides you through that program. And you have fixed times. So there is the opening, which is, I think, 2 minutes. And then there is a session called Tabletops, where people are called, basically, they're just called up onto the stage. And they need to talk for 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes about a topic they can't prepare for. And afterwards, you have prepared speeches, which for most of the time, they are 5 to 7 minutes. You should talk for at least 5 minutes and not more than 7 minutes, which sort of trains your feeling for timing. And I found it at the beginning very, very hard to express what I wanted to express in these 7 minutes. When I listened to other Toastmasters who were more experienced than me, they always seemed to say so much more than me in the same amount of time. And I was like, how is that possible? So I analyzed what they were doing, and I recorded myself on my mobile phone, on my smartphone, as I was preparing the talks. And at first I said, okay, I want everything I want to say, I just say it. And usually it was like 10, 12, 14 minutes. I listened to that a couple of times. And then I said, okay, what can I cut out? And there's a lot of fluff in what we're saying. So as you do this, you're compressing your ideas, your train of thought, and you're sort of just, it is really like a condensed version. At the end, only the most important things remain. And you can say those in the 5 to 7 minutes with pauses for effects and everything, with body language. And it's very funny. But if you do this, you can actually say more in a smaller amount of time, simply because you focus on the essentials. And one of the things I also agree with is that means something. If you want to develop a train of thought, usually if you have a train of thought which you can express clearly, it is not something completely new. It's something you have thought before several times. If it's something completely new, you can also express it, but you will stumble a lot, even if it's in an area where you're already comparatively fluent. And I also find this, you guys might know that I'm currently doing my PhD. I also find this when I'm discussing something with my supervisor. Sometimes my supervisor says, here's a half-baked idea, and he tells me something, what we might do. And even though this is in a field he's been operating in for many, many years, he's also not expressing it very eloquently, or he sometimes not so much stumbles, but makes false starts and so on. But if you do it again and again, then you notice what is the most essential bits, which parts can you leave out, where do you need to add something, and so you can make your train of thought stronger and stronger. Also, where does it not make sense right now? And this is a very important component of being able to articulate your words. It's not just, sometimes you need to immediately be able to express it, but most of the times it's actually going through several iterations before you can express yourself very clearly and very fluently. Thanks, Greg. You also mentioned the difference between listening and fully hearing the other's ideas before responding. One thing that helped me a lot is asking questions. This is an idea which I originally borrowed from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends. No, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Somewhere in this book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, he talks about how to stop worrying about what to say in a conversation with other people. And he has the tip of ask questions and listen to them. Most people will find you a very good conversation partner if they can talk a lot and you don't talk so much. If you show real interest in them, then they will think you're a really good person to talk to. And I never really fully started doing this until when I was already working in industry for several years. At that time, I had a little bit of experience, and there were lots of other people in the team who were not so experienced as I was. So I was sort of, I had to help them with their tasks. And I sort of had to say, okay, we need to go this direction or that direction based on experience, based on what we had done in previous projects. And sometimes they asked me questions which I could not immediately answer, or they made some suggestions or said the suggestions that I made, the direction in which I wanted to go, they didn't agree with me. They sort of tried to challenge me. And at that point, I didn't know what to say, because it's I think the same idea. I had an idea in my mind why I wanted to go into a certain direction, why I thought this was the right direction to go in, but I never had to express my thoughts clearly before. So they made perfect sense in my mind, but I could not speak them out right now. And this was an on-the-spot situation, right? I could not say, okay, give me 3 days and I will rehearse it and then I get back to you. They wanted an answer now. So what I did instead is I tried to buy myself time. And this is something I learned again from Toastmasters, from the table topic session, when you need to talk for 1 to 2 minutes about a topic you're not prepared to. The first thing you learn is how to buy yourself time at the beginning to think. And the way I started to buy myself time is by applying the tip from Dale Carnegie. And I asked them questions. So I asked them to clarify what exactly they mean, why exactly they don't agree with the direction I was proposing. And this had 2 effects. First of all, it gave me the time to think. So my mind could catch up with the situation, and I could more clearly think about the things I wanted to say. It had actually 3 effects. That was the first effect. The second effect was, because now I understood much better where the people are coming from, I could much better answer their questions. I could really address their concerns. And thirdly, the people actually felt that I listened to them, which I did. I did not just ask them the questions and then just listen to my own thoughts. I really listened to their answers so that I could integrate them with my answer. And so they really felt that I valued them, that I valued their opinion. And because I did this, and they were much more they were much more likely to follow my suggestion later. And sometimes I took their suggestion. Sometimes their suggestion was actually good, was much better than what I had intended. Sometimes it was a mix between the two. Sometimes it was my suggestion. But yeah, I think at the end, everybody felt better. And after I've done that several times, I felt that the working relationship with some of the colleagues actually improved, because now it was much more a relationship based on eye-level communication. I took them seriously, they took me seriously, and we started to work better as a team. And yeah, so this is something that can help you if you're under stress on the spot. You need to somehow get your thoughts out now. Buy yourself a bit of time by asking questions. Most people won't mind if you ask them real, honest questions. Right. Ray said, any tips on reading the newspaper to get most out of it? The newspaper is something I'm also struggling with. With news in general, I think I'm getting better at that, but a lot of the news, they are not actually so newsworthy, I think. What I mean by this is that a lot of the news are not actually so much news, but they're just opinions. Not necessarily partisan opinions on the very left or the very right, even if it's in the center, but they're reporting somebody else said that they think this and this is going to happen. Somebody else think that next quarter the economy will turn down and so on. And there's a lot of the information on which they base their assumptions and their forecast is actually missing. There are a couple of points which we can make. One point is we can take the news. You could always do an ABC active, but a lot of times I find in one single news story there is not enough meat to fill a complete ABC active. You can of course take several news stories about the same topic. It's always good if you get a wider variety of views and background information. Another thing which I sometimes do is I take the news stories and I categorize them. So I'm not taking individual words from the news stories, but I take the news stories themselves and say, okay, this is an opinion piece. This one reports some new information, and so on and so forth. On this one, maybe it's positive for this, report something positive, why it's good to go a certain direction. This news story reports something negative. Because in order to do this, in order to categorize anything, we actually need to understand it very well. We need to think about it much deeper than we would usually do. So what I find is, if I do this, I can remember the news stories much more. And you can still do your ABC active on the side. Another tip, and this is sort of getting us back to the topic of this Q&A session, is you can summarize the news in your own words. You can start integrating different news sources with one another and say, source A says this, source B says exactly the opposite, sort of almost like when you're doing literature research, because if you're reading a news story, this is really what you're doing. You're doing literature research, and you can try to integrate this with other information you have about the topic. If it's, for instance, about, I don't know, some news related to farming, and some news related to coronavirus or whatever. So you can start to try to assemble a train of thought from the news stories, and then try again to rehearse it, either in writing or in speaking them out, and see what it's sort of see what you can make of all of that together. If you put everything together, what picture do you get? What pattern emerges? And then again go through the iteration loop several times. And this is obviously not something you can do for every news story, but this is something for very important news stories. And then you can formulate your train of thought. You can see where are the gaps, where should I do more research, where should they maybe do more research, maybe they have the gaps, it's not the gap in my understanding. And so you can build your understanding from there. It's maybe another thing which I can say about this is a lot of the times, unfortunately, when we think about learning something, we think about the information is out there and we need to get it into our brain. There are even some beautiful cartoons from the 19th century where there is a teacher that opens the skull of their students and sort of stuffs everything inside the brain. And then later on, if we want to reproduce it, we think it's the same. We think we take it out of our mind as it is, and then we just need to speak it out. But with all of this, and this is also why learning is so difficult, why expressing your thoughts is so difficult, there's actually some real physical changes happening in your body. We don't understand it very well yet. We're in the process of deciphering it, but we know that in the brain you have your neurons. You have Let me quickly draw this so I can show this to you better. So I hope you can see that okay. These are your nerve cells, your neurons. This is the cell body, and here we have what is called the axon. And the axon is what connects the cells with one another. What's actually happening when you're thinking is that at some point you get some stimulus somehow, and that excites these cells. Then the cells transmit the stimulus to another cell, and at another cell you have the stimulus from several of these neurons, and these stimulus are integrated, and depending on the integration, and the integration just means some of them excite the cell positively, others excite the cell negatively, and at the end you have a certain level of excitement. Depending on that, you have another signal which is sent on, and it's precisely at these points here. Sometimes new neurons grow, but especially here at this interaction between the cell body and the axon. This is where most things are changing when we're learning things. The strength of the interaction changes, which means that there is some real physical change in your body. There's also some wet brain. There's also some other things going on we don't understand quite well yet. But whenever we're learning something or when we reproduce something, it is actually some real change happening in your body. Sometimes only for a short amount of time, and then it goes back to what it was before. Sometimes for a long time, maybe forever. And so it takes energy. I can also always see this when two of my focus topics, one of them is thinking, which is what this YouTube channel is about. The other one is systems. And I'm also teaching complex systems in a master's course. Now, most of my reading for complex systems I'm doing in English because there's much more information out there, and I'm living in an English-speaking country. I'm surrounded by English all the time, so English is for me my language of choice for literature research. But the class is in German, and I can feel that sometimes when I'm tired and people asking me questions, I know the answer in my mind. I could tell them the answer in English, but I'm struggling to tell them the answers in German because I'm more tired. So these processes that are happening in my mind, because I don't have my level of energy is not so high. They're not working as well as they would usually do. And then later on, if I'm more awake, then I can formulate much better in German again. It's very fascinating. Okay, we have a couple of other things. Faizan, I wonder, any thoughts on using NVIVO as a theme encoding of newspapers, magazines, and books? I heard about NVIVO before, but I'm not actually sure what it is. Let me look that up quickly. Qualitative data analysis software. Produce blah blah. Helps qualitative researchers to organize, analyze, and find insights in unstructured or qualitative data like interviews, open-ended survey responses, journal articles, social media, web content. Large volume of data are required. I would need to look into NVIVO in more detail to answer that question. I think for most topics, probably using a fully fledged analysis software will be overkill. You might do similar things on your own, but I think for the most part it's absolutely okay if you just read your different news stories and then you try to integrate them by yourself. Yeah, again, I don't know how exactly NVIVO works. There might be sometimes when it's beneficial to have NVIVO. This is when you really go some deep level analysis, but yeah, right now I think it will probably be overkill for most topics. And then Faizan clarified again, it's a software mainly used for data analysis. I've seen some videos on YouTube, looks interesting. One of the things is we're very likely to believe data more when it comes from a computer program. We have a bias for that. We think it somehow has a higher quality, it's cooler. I don't know where it comes from. One thing you should always be careful about, the computer program is only as good as the person who's operating it. You might know the garbage in, garbage out principle. If you do something wrong at the beginning, if you feed garbage into the system will work perfectly. But if it doesn't have any good quality source material to work with, you won't have any good output material at the end. So first of all, you need to learn how to use the software. Secondly, you need to find your good quality data, which you should do anyway, so this is fine. And then it depends what questions you're asking. It is very tempting to say, this is this new shiny gadget and it will solve all our problems. It might solve some of the problems, that's correct. So I don't want to push them away, but it will certainly not be able to solve all the problems. It will only be able to solve a subset of problems. And also, you need to do a lot of investment before it's able to solve the problems. Maybe the investment is worth it, but it's not always worth it. Maybe it is worth it for some people, but not for other people. And I think for most people in the context of news stories is probably the case that, again, this is probably overkill. All of the learning you have to invest, and for what you get out at the end, you can get out maybe even the same information, the same insights, but otherwise insights which are very close to that with much more frugal tools. I think you should always try to use your tools to the best of your abilities. Be on the lookout for new tools, but don't run around from one miracle solution to the next miracle solution to the next miracle solution. Be on the lookout for that. If it helps for you, if there's a benefit you can see, definitely go ahead, learn it, try it out, explore it, and hopefully it will help you. But yeah, don't just go there because it's new, shiny, and technology. Okay, thanks, Faizan. Then we have another comment from Erithekos. How can one get away from the inner critic and proceed somewhat confidently on their train of thought while writing for academic audience? That is a very difficult question. Some of the things which I'm doing, which you might find helpful, is so usually when you're writing for an academic audience, scientific audience, whatever, you don't start from scratch. You build on previous research. Depending on what you're writing, you only build on previous research. That's called literature research. Most likely, in most fields these days, you will integrate your own results with that of previous, with that what previous literature has established. And then you will discuss in which ways do your results work together with the previous results, in which ways do they contradict what has come before, how do they extend this, what other avenues of research, of possible research questions are they opening, and so on and so forth. So what I tend to do is I first go and do the research. I'm doing my ABC actives and everything, and I'm collecting the main points of the other authors. Then I go and I start writing about them. But at that moment in time, I'm not yet writing the piece which I later want to get published, not even the first draft. I talked about this in the video 5 ways how to articulate your thoughts into words. It was the first and or second tip I talked about. So after I read a couple of papers, I take a blank Word document and I ask myself the question, so what have I learned? Yeah, just write the question at the top, what have I learned? And then just bash it out. Maybe this helps for you already, maybe it doesn't, that depends on you. For me, it always helps a lot because I'm currently not writing what I want to publish. Currently, I'm just telling myself what I read as if I was telling that to a friend. And I might say, here are things I don't know about yet. For instance, there was one research that we were doing or not one research we were doing, one research we were thinking about doing. I was working on a proposal that had to do with applying anesthesia to the digits and then stimulating them and seeing what's happening. So this is only anesthesia that will last for a couple of hours, and then everything will go back to normal. And there are 2 terms I found in the literature. One of them was anesthetic nerve block. So you're blocking the nerves with anesthesia. That makes sense. The other one was ischemic nerve block. And I didn't know the difference between the two. Was there a difference, or is there just 2 words for the same thing? So as I was bashing out my ideas, I said, actually, so far I haven't learned a lot about A and B, anesthetic nerve block, or I and B, ischemic nerve block. Then I made a note for myself in brackets. I still don't know whether these are the same or not. Close the brackets. Okay, I put this down. This is out of my mind. I acknowledge that there's something I don't know. Continue writing. Then I wrote a paragraph about basically not having a clear train of thought at all, going from here to there, just laying everything out which is in my mind. Then I stepped back and I wrote another question. I can't remember what it was exactly in this instance, but it could be a question for what does that mean in detail, or picking out one thing, or can you state this more clearly? And then I continue to bash out my ideas again. And as I'm doing this, as I'm going through these very, very general questions several times, at the end, I'm starting to have something like a train of thought. And then I can take this document, put it away, start a new document where I now try to follow this train of thought and try to write my first draft of this train of thought. Then I go and I show it to somebody else, for instance, my supervisor, some other PhD students, and so on, get their feedback. Or I'm just thinking about it, then I come back to it, editing my draft again, adding something, taking something out, or I notice my train of thought was completely BS, it doesn't make any sense, or at least it is not pointing in the right direction in which I want to go, then I start a new draft. Not sure whether this really helps you. It depends on how strong your inner critic is. It depends. If it's not too strong, this might help you. If it is very strong, it might still not help you. Another thing you can do the same exercise with a real person. Somebody who you know is not going to criticize you unless you're asking them for it. I don't know, a very good friend, a colleague of yours, whoever. Then go and tell them, I have some ideas in my mind, but they're not very clear. And say, can I talk to you about this? Of course, you must make sure at the beginning that you really trust this person, that they will not be derisive of your ideas, that they will not belittle your ideas in any way, and also they must understand that this is very early times and they must be patient enough to listen to you. They will do exactly the same thing what I described before on paper. You describe it to them and it sort of makes sense or not make sense. You're going off on this tangent and then you're going off on that tangent, and they will interrupt you and they will ask questions. They should ask real questions. They should not do at this point, at this moment in time, they should not yet say, oh, that doesn't make sense or this doesn't make sense. But they ask real questions, as in, I didn't understand this point very clearly. Can you explain it again to me? Or they will say, well, from what I understand, what you're saying is this. Is that correct? And again, based on this, you're sort of forced to go forwards because now you're talking to another person. But again, you're not yet at your actual paper. You're not yet at your actual piece of academic writing. That comes later, once you already have a general idea of your train of thought that you want to put down on your paper. And at least for me, this helps enormously with circumnavigating my inner critic and getting my inner critic to shut up. You can try it and see whether it also works for you. Thank you for your tips. Enjoy letting your friend and help. Okay, great. Yes, taking daily notes it's definitely good. And if you take notes, I'm not sure whether you mean these are lab notes, as in when you do your experiments, you take notes. This is paramount that you take notes there, no question asked. But on top of that, also take notes while reading. If you talk to colleagues, if you talk to somebody else and they have an interesting idea, write it down afterwards, make a note of it. You can organize your notes in a zettelkasten if you want. You can just use a normal notebook, that's absolutely fine. But it's these tiny little steps that you're going to follow later. And then you can take your notes in whichever form you wrote them down and take a few notes from here, take a few notes from there, combine them, even start combining them before you write your piece you want to write at the end. Just say, okay, I read 5 papers now. Let's see, what do they tell me if I step back and look at them together? Yeah, try to put this into words. Not with the intention to publish this later, just for yourself, just so that it becomes clearer to yourself. Because again, this is goes back to what I said before about what's happening when we're learning. Yeah, our brain needs to change. And if you summarize this in this way, you will also learn much better. Literature research is just a special form of learning. Any research is just a special form of learning. It's not the form of learning you're used to, or we are used to from our formal classes, but it's learning nevertheless. And so again, if you try to put it into your own words, you try to combine it, try to play around with it, this is very good to help you make sense of all of that. And moreover, because your mind is not currently thinking, at the end, I will present this to somebody. Your inner critic is much more likely to shut up because you're just playing around with it. You're just seeing what's coming out of it. You're just exploring it. And there's no need for your inner critic to step in, because you will most likely never show this to anyone ever. But if you do this in very small increments, you can build a very deep, a very thought out train of thought, little by little. And at the end, you know all the steps, but other people just see the outcome. So yes, taking daily notes of the research is definitely a good idea. You see, I think I probably have said this implicitly several times as I was answering the questions, but let me try to make this more explicit. A lot of the time, when we're producing something, or when we're doing something, you can see actually at the moment, I'm also trying to articulate my thoughts into words. Now I think I found the right words to express what I want to say. So when we're doing something, we're thinking of individual compartments, which are mutually exclusive, which are not overlapping. So we're thinking of, now I'm learning, now I'm writing something, or I'm preparing a presentation. And now I want to come up with ideas. But really, the different modes of thinking, they're very, very hard to distinguish from one another. Yes, you can do this to a point, but there is a lot of interaction between the different modes of thinking. This is why the Romans said, docendo discimus, by teaching we learn. If you teach, you're actually saying something in a way that somebody else can understand it. Whether you want to express your thoughts so that somebody else can understand them in order to teach them, in order to make a point, in order to show what you discovered, for whatever purpose, for sales purposes, it's always taking what's inside your brain, taking what you know, and putting it into words for other people to understand. But as you do this, you will interact with your knowledge in a different way, and this will lead to you understanding the knowledge better. And so there is, sometimes it's useful to distinguish between the different modes of thinking. But in practice, in reality, there is not a very, very distinct separation between the modes of thinking. And this is something we need to learn. This is something we need to get used to, because, as I said, I also noticed that so many times in industry, people do their routine jobs, everything's going well, suddenly there's a problem, now we need ideas to solve the problem. No, technically it's too late. If you start thinking about ideas to solve the problems only when the problem comes up, you're your access to your knowledge, your access to the problem is not good enough. You constantly need to explore your problem, not only your problems, you constantly need to explore the topic you're working in more and more, see it from different angles. Ask yourself, what would I do if that happens? What would I do if that happens? Take other knowledge and see, if I combine this with this knowledge, what do I get? Discuss certain things. And then if a problem arises, you need ideas, or you need to express your thoughts. Then, since your mind is constantly now in the habit of making connections, accessing that information, and because you know that information on a much deeper level, you can pull out much more information and much deeper information much more quickly. And also, it is then much easier for you to put this into a coherent train of thought, because parts of this train of thought you've very likely already thought before, and you're just rearranging puzzle pieces you played around with before. So I think this is a very important message, and there are hardly any people talking about this. I think there are also hardly any people who are searching for that, because we're always thinking about, we're thinking our constraints. Oh, I have a problem with expressing my thoughts. I have a problem with learning. I have a problem with coming up with ideas. But really, they're all interconnected. Right. Time is flying by. We already spent 50 minutes together. Do you guys have any other ideas, comments we haven't touched on yet? Anything, any burning questions you would like to know? Mm-hmm. Yes, Faizan. What book are you reading for note-taking? Yes, I think I heard about this book. I think it also talks about the zettelkasten, how to take smart notes. Yes, I've seen the book before. I haven't read it. It's simple to read and shows the process. From what I heard, maybe at some point I'm going to read it. From what I heard is, though, he's not, the author doesn't give a lot of practical tips. Maybe he's making the theory very clear, and maybe that's the strength of the book. How do you like the book so far? Okay, it might be that there's some tips. As I said, I haven't read the book yet. I think I'm going to read it soon, but for now I cannot really comment on that. If you think it's useful, and I heard other people think it's useful, then it probably is, yes. You also need to write proposals. Yes. It's, yeah. Example one of, okay, Greg, you also know the book. Great. Yeah, well, I will definitely give that book a read soon. 3-day read, about 3 hours daily. Okay. Sounds very good. So yes, I hope what I have shared with you today has helped you a little bit, at least, And I hope it was useful for you that you could see me answering your question in real time. Hey, Aditya. Yes, this is why we record this. That's fine. If you have any question you want to ask right now, go ahead. We still have a couple of minutes. And otherwise, I actually found this very enjoyable. I like interacting with you guys very closely and getting to know you guys better, getting to know your problems better. Also, every time in the comments. Right now, I don't get so many comments. At the moment, I can still read each and every comment. So whenever you have a question, a comment, an idea, anything you want to run by me or run by others as well, please always write them in the comments. I always read all the comments, and I will try to answer the comments as best as I can. As I said, right now it's still absolutely manageable. So at the moment is your best time to contact me, and you can still be certain that your comments will reach me. How do you approach a situation multidimensionally? I am not sure what you mean by multidimensionally in this case. Do you mean, how do I look at more than one aspect of a situation? Or how else could you understand multidimensionally in this context? Okay, yes, how to go more than one aspect. Right, for that, and there are different ways. One of the ways is having different sources. So this is, if you want to learn something, this is going back to note-taking and learning and all of that. If you have different sources, the more diverse your sources are, the more they're complementing each other, they're sometimes contradicting each other, and you need to make sense of all of that, which requires a lot of thinking. So in that way, you can find different aspects. Although you must be careful, because sometimes different sources have a very closely matching viewpoint, and they're actually not as diverse as you would hope. Other than that, a good way are always ABC lists, because ABC lists you can wander very freely. You can follow. You're not really following one train of thought. Werner Birkenbiel always used to call it train hopping, because you get a wide array of ideas, and sometimes the ideas are related for part of your ABC list which you're connecting. As a very simple example, if you do an ABC list about animals, because maybe you want to write something about animals and you want to get as many animals as possible, or you want to think about what animals should go in a zoo, or whatever, you do an ABC about animals. Maybe at some point you think about the lion, and afterward you think about the giraffe, the hippopotamus, the rhinoceros, and other animals in Africa. Or maybe you think about tigers and cats and lynxes and other types of cats, other types of felines. So this is what I mean by sometimes they're related, but after 10, 20, 30 seconds, very likely your brain will go onto a different point. So doing a ABC list, especially repeated ABC list about the same topic, is very good to get a diverse range of ideas from yourself. You can also do ABC lists with other people, because everybody will fill the ABC list from their point of view, and everybody tends to view a different aspect of a problem or a situation. You can also just ask questions to other people. That always helps. Though again, not always is the difference between your viewpoint and the viewpoint of the other person very different. Yeah. Sometimes it's constrained by your culture or because you know each other very well, you have similar experiences. But asking other people is a great way, and using ABC lists to do this is a great tool. Also, if you already have a list of words and you start ranking them, if you ask to do, several people should do the ranking or should categorize the words. And then you ask them, why did you do it in this way? You're not challenging them as so much as you want to understand, really, this is a real question. Why did you do it in this way? You listen to the answer. You will be blown away. There will be so many ideas that are coming to you never thought about. And then once you have all of these ideas, then you can go and integrate them again and say, okay, which of them is more important, which one is less important, which one is closer to what I want to think about, which one is not so close. Are they really contradicting each other, or are they looking actually at different aspects? If they're contradicting each other, how can I build a bridge between the two, and so on. And yeah, if you do this, then you can very, very well in a comparatively short amount of time, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but comparatively short amount of time, see the topic from much more angles. It's also something which I notice at the moment, because thanks to all of your comments and your questions, and with some people I had some really in-depth discussion already, you guys see thinking, learning, and expressing your thoughts, the zettelkasten, everything from so many different perspectives. And I've been challenged so much at the moment. I'm really learning a lot from all of you guys, and I hope you're learning as much from me as I'm learning from you. So it's been a very pleasurable experience for me. How to take a good decision and right decision promptly. You mean brainstorm with ABC list template? Yes, that's what I mean. Brainstorm with an ABC list template. Basically, write your topic at the top, have the ABC list, and then just write down whatever comes to your mind. Individual words or idioms or something like that. And afterwards, go back and see, why did you write down the words? What do you connect with these words? Okay, thanks, Greg. Great convo. See you around. Thanks, Faizan, sorry. How to make good decisions and right decisions promptly. Oof. I think this is a big, it's a big question. I'm actually planning to make a video about this, where I share some ideas about how to do this. At the end, it comes down to understanding the problem very well. I just want to answer it very, very briefly here, but it comes down to understanding the problem well, and to seeing the connections, to seeing what aspects of the problem are essential. Which of them lead to problems later on? Which of them might have side effects which you don't want? So if you're in your focus topic, if you're very deep inside your focus topic, it is very easy to take decisions quickly, because you know so much about it, you know so much about the consequences, you can judge the importance very quickly, or you can think about, if I do this, what will be the knock-on effects? But it takes time. It's actually making decisions. I think it's very closely related to expressing yourself clearly, in that you need to take your knowledge, you need to take what is inside your mind, and then you need to somehow get it out, and you need to craft, you positively need to craft a train of thought. This can be, again, for teaching, for making decisions, for contradicting somebody, for extending what somebody else said. But I think making decisions and expressing yourself clearly, they are related. They're not the same, but they're related. And so the easy answer, and maybe not so very satisfactory answer, how to make good decision and right decision promptly, is, if this is an area where you want to make good and quick decisions, make this a focus topic of yours. Learn a lot about this, talk to other people, tell them your ideas, listen to them, think more about it, explore the topic, and then over time, for this particular topic, you will acquire the ability to make decisions quickly. But yes, it's not so easy. It's not that you just take one tool and then you will always make good decisions. A lot of people promising that, but that's not how it works. That's not how thinking works, unfortunately. Or fortunately, if you think about it, because if this would work, then thinking would be very, very boring. And thinking is actually something very marvelous and very incredible and very entertaining if you do it in a topic where you know a lot. The more you know, the more you know about a topic, the more entertaining thinking about this topic becomes. Okay, when I practice mathematics, I face a problem. I apply the same failed approach over and over again instead of attempting to approach it differently. Can I do something about it? Okay, Aditya, have you ever heard about George Polya? Polya, how to solve it. George Polya was a mathematics teacher in the 1960s, 1970s, already died long ago. He wrote a book, How to Solve It. And there's also a video on YouTube. You can search for George Polya. On YouTube, there's a video on YouTube where he shows how he teaches students. And he teaches students by letting the students explore the problem on their own, and the students come up with a solution on their own. And he has a lot of good things to say. I would recommend you looking up George Polya. I learned a lot from him, and when I'm learning new mathematical problems or engineering problems, these type of problems, I always try to employ his method, because he has sort of like a checklist from things like, are there other problems I solved before which I might adapt? Can I solve a simpler problem? Can I solve a more comprehensive problem? Can I abstract the problem? Can I solve part of the problem? And all of that. And he explains it very well. I would definitely recommend you check out George Polya. Okay, guys, it's already been more than an hour. Again, it was very nice talking to all of you and interacting with you more directly. If you found this useful, then I'm absolutely happy to do this more often in the future. Again, you can rewatch the video, leave your comments under the video, like under any normal video. I'm, as always, very happy to read them, answer them as good as I can. And thanks everybody for attending and for asking so many great questions. It was really enjoyable. You guys are, all of not only the people who participated today, but everybody who views my videos, who comments, who subscribed, all of you, you're a really great bunch. And actually being a YouTuber is much more fun than I imagined. As I said, I'm also learning a lot. Thank you guys very much. And have a good weekend, and I see you guys in my next video. And until that time, as always, keep thinking. Bye.